what's the best like term from Deep Rock that is like best describes breasts?
A weird way to start the podcast.
I see your brother just yodeling in the background.
Yeah.
I mean, loot bugs is not terrible, is it? It's like not bad at all.
Reels.
No.
I don't like this questionnaire.
All right. Anyway, whatever. Happy fucking afternoon. Welcome back to the fucking Barrel Vision fucking podcast.
This is a all ages podcast.
Yep, as long as you're over the age of 42.
Which some people are. Hello, all of our 42 and above viewers. All three of you.
That is really weird.
We have a percentile of 60 plus, which I think is less interesting for us and more interesting for the game, which I just think it's really interesting and cool that there are 60-year-old players plus playing Deep Rock Galactic.
I think it's cool.
Video games generally.
No, okay, that itself is cool, but in general, I actually don't. I completely understand why Deep Rock would be, if any, a game that someone over the age of 50 would be drawn to. I actually do completely understand that, given that it
used to work back in the mind anyway.
Yeah, not necessarily, but I think it's it is because the game, in terms of what you do in the game, it does somewhat operate like you're doing a job in a lot of ways. That's the entire point of assignments, is literally just the game telling you what to do in a game where you wouldn't know what to do if you weren't being told what to do. So the game's sort of completely built around those things. And then obviously promotions as well are a big part of it. And I guess they like simulating getting drunk, maybe, too, I imagine. I can't blame them for that, really.
Well, what do old people do all day other than get pissed drunk? They're retired.
They watch telly. Yeah, maybe it's because they miss working. Maybe because they miss manual labour.
Maybe they have good taste in games. Who knows?
I think that older people, especially older people who somehow get into gaming when they're that age, which isn't common, but when they do, I think they tend to play pretty respectable stuff. Like Skyrim Grandma.
Yeah.
Did she die? I don't know if she died or not. I hope she didn't. I know they're putting it in Elder Scrolls 6 as like an NPC, apparently, which, she's never going to see that, even if she is alive.
Oh
no, that's not even that's just true. That's just true.
It is like another 7 to 10 years.
Is it?
Well, how long did it take Starfield since I would say 76, but 76 was, I'm not even sure, was that main Bethesda?
I think it was in part, actually. I think Todd actually had a lot more to do with that than he admits. He doesn't, or he's not admits, but he doesn't talk about it. But that was actually Bethesda, the developer, were involved, I'm pretty sure. But yeah, it's more appropriate to go from Fallout 4, and that is 9 years. 9 years.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Fallout 4 was 2014.
So it doesn't bode well for it.
No. It's interesting, though, that something can take that fucking long.
Yeah, and something that takes, as long as, Starfield is coming out and it's still not actually look that great either. I saw some videos on it and it probably isn't going to be the best game ever made. To no one's real surprise.
Oh dear.
But it's going to be free on Game Pass, so I don't give a shit.
Yeah, honestly, I see. I don't know what effect that really has on things. I would assume actually very little in the context of Bethesda, but I do wonder if it could somehow be better if they were charging full price for it. I don't really know what that means, but
I don't think the quality would change, but the reception to the poor quality will change. Right? It's the fact that some games, when they were treated the most harshly, it's because of the price tag put on it. No Man's Sky would not have gotten as much shit as it got if it didn't cost 60 quid on like purchase and had like a 80 quid special
I
edition.
think No Man's
right?
Sky would have been like really like probably really respected if it was like actually an indie thing.
Which it was, just so we're clear. Like,
But it had
was
a
an
trip. But it became a AAA game.
Yeah. Sony pushed it for AAA, and like claimed it was AAA and stuff like that. And so like that kind of doomed it essentially. And I think they are publishing Starfield as a AAA game. It is a AAA game. It has the price tags to like agree with that. But it does then for like anyone that plays it on Xbox and maybe even PC with the Xbox Game Pass on PC, like it will be like, yeah, it's shit, but I played it for free, and like everyone's gonna kind of say that. So it's only really gonna be like PlayStation players or like Steam players. It is they do Steam? Bethesda put games on Steam. I'm not sure. Whatever they would put ever on either anyway. It'll be those players that kick up a huge fuss about how they got scammed, because even if the game is terrible, people that got it on Game Pass probably haven't been scammed, so they're not going to be too pissed about it.
So I just deleted like 6 hours worth of videos to make sure that we don't run out. What are we going to need that much time? Yeah, shit. What was I going to? All I was going to say is I really admire the turnaround on No Man's Sky, even if I don't give a shit about the game. That is an insane turnaround, genuinely.
Yeah, but
I think comeback, I guess.
Yeah, and I think everyone gives it a pass because first things first, they were being incredibly ambitious, and it was already a cool, like, incredibly good and incredibly impressive, and it won awards even for its shoddy result concept, right? Second of all, it was and is publicly known to be a very small team. I mean, it's actually grown quite a lot. I think it is, considering it started with like 5 to 10 people. It's now, I think, in the hundreds maybe. Like they did upscale the team quite quickly to meet the demand, but like the mixture of those two things and like that, people kind of give No Man's Sky a pass. And plus, wait, it is a good game now. If you like that kind of thing, it is a good game. Those three things combined give No Man's Sky like the shining martyr of a game that comes out bad can get good, right? But that's had the unfortunate thing of people
Hold on.
now don't.
I don't think that aligns with the definition of martyr.
Probably not. No. I mean, point is, it was bad and then it got good, and it was one of the first games that ever really did that, right? Or at least the most famous version of that. And I think, given that's the case, it bode poorly for the future of games, right? Like, it may have done more harm than good. In it saving itself, it gave an out to essentially every other game that has come out within the last 5 years that has been absolutely terrible, and through updates over like a year or two became playable. Right?
Well, that's sort of been because was No Man's Sky a live service like on release? Was that even a thing?
It was never gonna. It never said it was. No, it just became it because it started adding the content it promised to be there on launch. That was what the live service was.
Yeah,
it was them adding the content they had promised.
So
eventually,
it could play into, because this is a big aspect of live service games, and the reason why they are done the way that they're done, it could have come from No Man's Sky in some way, or No Man's Sky could be used as evidence by like higher ups at these publishers as to why doing things this way is a good idea. Where releasing like genuinely a bad product and then fixing it is like a business strategy now, and has been for a while as well. Where it's like it's terrible on launch, but that's because it's a live service game, right? So it gets better over time, and supposedly that, I don't know, is that supposed to generate buzz? I guess it does. But I don't know if it really is working. Let's be honest. Like the most successful live service is still Fortnite, and that didn't start unfinished. Let's be honest. It was like a very compact. It was compact, sure, but it was still the whole thing.
The best games are still the games that worked from the beginning and then built off that, right? Like obviously, No Man's Sky is an exception. It really should be an exception. But like generally, games that fix themselves into becoming the bare minimum still are kind of not great. Like Fallout 76, if we want to bring it back around to that.
No.
Like I think people still think Fallout 76 is kind of ass. Like it has gotten better. It's not the buggy, unplayable, empty game that it was before, and it's still rife with microtransactions. Its
They
systems
just
still aren't
stuck with
great.
it. But it's like
It,
it really is. Those Fallout 76 and Elder Scrolls Online really feel to me like Bethesda just forcing those things to be successful. You know, they just haven't let up on Elder Scrolls Online at all. They just
well,
keep
it
pushing
feels
it,
like
and it's just got enough people to buy that shit where it makes them money. Where it makes their money back. It's profitable somehow. It must be profitable. You know, it just don't stop, even though it's
it,
not
fe-
that popular. No.
it feels like that they use those games like the live service online stuff to allow themselves to make the less profitable single player games every so many years, right? Like like
Yeah, but the scary part of that, like, not the scary part, but the problem with that is they're not even like actually getting better in that department. Or at least is Software an awesome developer, but I can't really get over the fact that they did supremely fuck over Mick Gordon in a really. Although I agree that was Bethesda more so. I don't know. And then I guess some people consider Machine Games, who did the new Wolfensteins, to have gotten worse with the second one, which I actually disagree with. Which is why I'm genuinely excited, like, or at least more like confidently excited when it comes to a Bethesda product in Machine Games' upcoming Indiana Jones game, whatever that is. Not that I care huge about Indiana Jones, but it's not a terrible concept, and those guys are pretty cool. Like, I'm more confident that that's going to be good than I am Starfield, if I'm being honest.
yeah.
Although Starfield still intrigues me greatly, obviously. It's like it. That's the thing about Starfield that's going to make it do numbers. Is just the fact that it has universal interest. Everyone's
Yeah.
interested in how it's going to play out, which means everyone's going to try it. Which means
Because I think everyone's kind of seeing this as like the point in time where it's like make or break for Bethesda. Like it's like if this game isn't exceptional, like this Titan has fallen into mediocrity, right? I think that like I think people know it's going to be glitchy. People know it's not going to be perfect, but like people are expecting it to be like at least good or great, right?
the Bethesda
Something
jank is
like a
expected, but
Skyrim,
it needs to be
right?
good. Yeah, it needs to be as good as Skyrim, arguably better on top
No,
of the
no,
Bethesda
not
jank.
no. I wouldn't. As good as Skyrim is not cutting it. Everything they've released since then is essentially as good as Skyrim. They have not improved since Skyrim, really. Like tiny little steps. They need this to be as better that to like Fallout 4 as like Skyrim was to whatever came out before Skyrim, right? It needs to be as big as a jump in holy shit, this is like revolutionary, this is amazing, this is like the pinnacle of gaming, and not the mediocrity shit that it is currently, right? Like Fallout 4 was like an average game that at the time it came out, right? If it is anywhere close to Fallout 4 in its like anything like graphics, size, scale, like gameplay, any of that shit, then that means it is like really behind the times. Like it has to send itself almost 10 years into the future, preferably further, in gameplay, graphics, all that shit, like better game design to be worth the wait.
Mm, mm.
Which obviously is the same thing for Elder Scrolls 6, which is going to have an even bigger thing to jump, which it's just not happening for them.
All right. Well, okay. I'm going to put a pin in this because let's be honest with ourselves, and we kind of just need to do it. Which is an entire episode on this stuff.
Yeah,
It
especially
sounds
since
obviously every time I say it, every time I think about it, I think, oh, would we be able to do it if we put ourselves on the spot? And maybe it
Yeah.
would be difficult at first, but it always just ends up running rampant anyway. You just need to spark that somehow. It's probably not going to
especially
be as
since
difficult as you think.
yeah,
It shouldn't
I
be.
saw
It shouldn't be more difficult just because we're doing it deliberately, in my
yeah,
opinion.
and I saw a video recently which did a thing that I want to talk about as well, and we'll do it I guess on that one where Baldur's Gate has gotten backlash from developers for being too good, essentially.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And the same thing happened for Elder Ring, and I want to talk about that. I think we'll do it then
I
because
think.
also
Hold on. I think
a good
unless
reason to stop.
carry on. I guess
Is
stop. I don't know if you get what
yeah. We have someone that wants to join us.
Is that Thomas?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, that's fine. But all I was going to say is, because we're going to have to switch over to the other chat, is
Yeah.
we'll do that. I think we'll do that, and this is something big we need to talk about. In Deep Rock, we'll do that after next week. I think, because next week is going to be something completely different. Because I think that's the day we're still going to put it on this day, and I don't think it's going to be a podcast. Either way, we're gonna have to. I'm gonna pause the recording.
Right.
All right, we're back from our piss break.
Yeah.
All right, we got a special guest with us today. Although nowhere near as special as the guest we're going to be having on next week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just an average guess, really, in comparison. Yeah.
Yeah, pretty damn average. Well, look, we should talk about that. Shut up, Tom. We should talk about this because, I mean, I don't know how many people would know, because the thing is about community posts on YouTube. No one fucking sees them. They're really not very well delivered to subscribers. Basically, we are getting the opportunity to interview a man called, well, I don't know how to pronounce his name, Trolls Jorgensen, the ex-sound designer for Deep Rock Galactic, which is incredible. He reached out to us in the comments under a video about him leaving, and it just took off from there. And now we're going to be interviewing him soon, and he told us that we can ask him whatever we like, which was really his mistake. But either way, I thought we should talk about this, or at least mention it, so that people can... First of all, if you can't be bothered to find the post, you can, if you want, I guess you could leave a question to leave this, but we have a community post where you can leave questions for him that will very likely be featured, as long as they're not like repeating something we were already planning on asking him, basically. So please do that.
So then people can actively watch it and then actively ask questions that you
We're
can
not going to
review.
live stream that. I don't think that's a good idea.
You can have it streaming, but just not actually addressing the stream really at all, and just they can watch, and then if they have any questions, they can ask them to the chat, and you guys can just discreetly look at them and say, "This is a question from this person." If you wanted to do that.
No, well, we're doing that already, but the questions aren't going to be coming through live. They're going to be, like prepared beforehand.
Yeah, we've also got a lot of questions.
And maybe this video. Yeah, well, we're probably going to be fine. We don't know how long he intends of doing it.
No.
I don't think it's going to be any longer than an hour. Right. It'd probably be starting to get unreasonable any longer for the time that he's doing it. But I don't know. It's a really cool opportunity, and looking forward to it. But there'll be more news on that next week.
I mean, I don't think there'll be any news. I guess apart from it just coming out.
Yeah, and we're having done it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, I suppose it was fitting how much we were talking about Bethesda before this, given the topic of this discussion.
Yeah.
Which is bugs, and not the the kind that you shoot, although I guess they do shoot bugs in a certain way by fixing them. Although obviously we've got to start with the most contemporary aspect of this. I think that sparked this entire theme in my head, and also I guess just the most relevant thing in Deep Rock right now is the most recent patch, because as I most acutely expected, there would obviously be at least one more patch after they came back from their break. Not completely done with season 4, which is no surprise to me. Although it is in response to something that the main part of it is in response to something that came up quite recently, which is this really strange exploit, which maybe you'd like to explain, Tyler. You know what it is, don't you? We all know what it is.
Basically,
I don't know if Tom knows what it is.
You dig a hole.
I had a discussion with Tyler about it.
Yeah.
Yesterday, which is what we were going to cover in this.
You dig a hole, you cover up that hole with a bunch of platforms, and as far as it's concerned, we don't know actually the exact reason why it does it. Like,
Yeah,
but
I thought it was like because
it's
it made the drop pod think that was like the furthest distance away from you for some reason.
yeah. I don't think that's it. I think it's more that it tries to avoid going through like a wall, right? If you don't physically have access to it without breaking through some stuff, it doesn't want to put it there. So essentially, you create a room where the only place that you have access to is that room. That's the only place area that you would have a direct path to. So then it drops it in there with you in there. So it now it would just do that. It drops it straight on your head. You then get out of the hole or wait for it to land on you, either or your funeral, and then boom, the molly is there. Everything just goes instantly. Essentially, you completely skip the relieving part of the game. Um, Obviously, it doesn't technically work on um, salvage up. The one that's the drop pod's already there.
Yeah,
You can't really do it on that.
but that's not
But
much of a
otherwise,
problem.
you can do it on like every other mission, and it skips that part of the game.
Oh, by the way, am I
which-
crazy for one of my favorite parts of salvage op being extraction, which is literally just surviving for 2 minutes?
Yeah, it's alright.
It's-
It's better
'cause it's
than the
not
point
too-
extraction surviving for 2 minutes, where
Point
you have to
extraction.
survive for 2 minutes and then you have to then go to the pod. But yeah, which I'm not sure how much, because you want to kind of bring it like upscale, don't you, Harry? You want to talk about like the bugs they keep, the bugs they don't, the exploits they like, the exploits they
Kind
don't.
of, because I know that's not exactly what this is, but I wonder if we
Yeah.
could get more out of this before moving
But
on to that stuff.
I think we could on it, like me and Tom, we already kind of looked at it at a certain angle when we talked about it, in that like, is this exploit that bad? Because is the like
Problem that could be solved by other means.
yeah, well, is the exploit that bad because is extraction so good? Like, why do so many people apparently like it seemed pretty like a strong a group of people constantly used it, and it wasn't even just speedrunners. It doesn't seem, obviously they would have loved it, right? That's really the thing that all of them were using constantly.
Yeah.
But like, why is it that a solid group of people just immediately flocks to skipping that part of the game out? And it's me and Tom kind of realizing that the extraction part is kind of bad. Like, it's kind of not great. Like, the part of the game that the other ones like thrive in, like exploring the caves initially, which is always quite fun, encountering stuff, and then fighting the horde in a bunkered down position, or just like killing enemies and all that, right? Both of those aspects kind of disappear on extraction, right? And it then replaces it with something that wears thin quick, being quick, get out of there. Just like
Quick,
a timer,
get out-
right?
get
Don't
out of
kill
here.
enemies because it will take too long. Don't explore anywhere. You should have done that already. You need to get out. Basically, resulting in you just running for a minute or two, and that being
Because
not
you've already been.
yeah, in places you've already been. So it's just treading already tread ground, just using the platforms you probably already placed earlier, like, or like anything, any infrastructure, and like that's kind of cool. Like, if you think about it, like, not cool, but it's kind of all right in that, like, oh yeah, this is the place we conquered, all that stuff. But ultimately, it's not great, especially since most of the time the infrastructure you build is one way, because you only need to get like through or down, right? Like, a big example of this is going back through a like vertical tunnel, right? That's just a straight down tube, right? Going back through them through extractions is a nightmare, right? And you have some less radical rooms that do essentially the same thing, though, that really were only made either by you or the game to go one way through. And then going back the other way is way bigger pain than it should be. And so that's kind of a bit of resistance. And that was obviously, I think, those things in coordination kind of bred the driller just drill us there mindset, right? Which that was obviously, that's the main thing. And that's probably something we're going to bring up in the more general. But people never really liked doing extractions, and then if given the opportunity, if there's a driller on your team, you just skip it, essentially, right? All of the faff of like going back through those caves, running around and trying to survive whatever situations you've already been through, essentially, all that stuff can just be easily skipped, and everyone seemed to already take that chance, right? They already liked doing that.
don't want to
So
be
that's
doing it
basically what like
based
yeah,
on
Tom was talking
that
about.
and also the new bug.
Yeah. Um,
Like if
so
they did
that
like it and enjoy it, because I don't when we started thinking about it, like, do I really enjoy doing that? Not really. Like I don't enjoy the
yeah,
extraction that much. Like it's
uh,
really gotten old and it's just repetitive, and often it only if it at best it's just the same old. But at worst, it often has spawn problems where Molly will just go upwards through like a resupply hole or something, or will just
that
take a
happens
path
pretty
that you
often. Yeah.
can't reasonably take, or the enemy spawns will just be really shit and annoying. Like if you're in front leading the pack, the enemies will spawn behind you and pose literally zero threat. Just literally not even a problem. But then if you're like behind that person who's in front, they're literally spawning on top of you, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah. Like
Like
it
the
is.
spawns are kind of wrong. The Molly taking a shit path is really annoying, and then also having to wait for Molly as well is also annoying. Like it's at best it's just mediocre, whereas at worst it can cost you the mission due to bullshit.
Like it was fun the first time, fun probably the 10th time, fun probably up to the 50th, maybe 100th time, but ultimately you break through that 100th time pretty quick in Deep Rock, and it becomes monotonous, right? Doing the escaping, and since yeah, I think as far as like the fun factor goes in missions, if I had to like put it into three stages, right? The exploration, the swarm killing, and the extraction, I'm thinking like 50% exploration. I find that really fun. 40%, fighting the horde, killing them, and then like 10% extraction. That's like 10% of the fun. Like
Mm.
if that. Like it is such a like, and considering I would say those are the three main parts of a game.
You
Like
can pretty much break up every mission into those things.
yeah.
Exploration, like prep and everything, and they all vary. And then doing the actual like swarms fighting, and then leaving.
Yeah.
All of which
And
vary slightly, but the extraction varies the least across all missions. And like even within missions, like the swarms and the cave generation all change so much. Like the swarms change a lot with particularly like they're adding tons to new enemy types. The exploration, they've added new missions, and like there's tons of different biomes and cave generations and lengths and complexities. A lot of variation in the exploration and swarm fighting, but there is literally zero variation other than very very slight with mission type of extraction. It's just the same every time,
yeah,
and I think
I know it's
people
not
have
even
forgotten
like
about it.
technically the terrain isn't the same, obviously, but it also kind of is, right? Like it kind of somehow is the same terrain since you've already gone through that terrain. It's nothing new.
Yeah, now that you've looted it all and taken all of the stuff, the terrain is just a cave, an empty cave, because you've already
Yeah.
been through it, looted all of it, and now there's nothing left but remnants of what you've left.
And the interesting thing I think with all this, because I think as much as we're all right in saying, oh, we're all right, but like as much as I think I stand by the fact that it's boring, I think it might not be on purpose, but I think it's one of those tough borings that the game likes, right? Like the kind of I don't know, sitting around waiting for something to just finish up, like I don't know, like an objective of whatever means, like waiting for that kind of stuff or the overcooked grind overall, the kind of boring that the game seems to kind of force you to do. Well, I think it like might
But
be
does
something closer to
16
that.
have some sort of stuff like that? But not.
Yeah,
I don't think that's needed in the extraction.
yeah. Well, yeah. I think that's the
I
thing
don't,
though.
it doesn't add anything. It being like that.
I think
Yeah,
it's a weird it's a small but honestly probably not insignificant part of the game's identity is taking tedium and somehow making it fun while still being tedious. You know, it's like it's
yeah,
definitely still tedious, but it's somehow is fun, but then that I guess it can wear off because, like I mentioned, it is in truth still tedious. Yeah, this is very strange, and I was gonna do the thing of trying to divvy up missions into like what they are, but I think the music is what does it best. So it'd be interesting if we could see what trolls
Yeah,
say about this. But
I'm
you think
sorry.
about it,
Yeah,
if you take if you shove away the miscellaneous tracks, the music is divided into three major categories. Aside from the other random stuff, which is swarms, ambience, and extraction, which represents the three major parts, which is swarms, exploring slash objectives as well. That's the other,
Yeah.
and then extraction, which is where the three main pieces of music come into play. As an entire category of music, in my opinion, the best category of music is dedicated to extraction, which might be part of the reason why I like it so much because I definitely am
It's
not.
probably one of the reasons why it's held up.
Yes, it is. I actually have to agree because I was going to say my opinion is not the same as yours. I like extraction quite a bit, which music could be doing a lot of that, and
It's not like we hate
it could be
It's
doing
not
most
like we
of it.
think it's
Even.
like awful. It's just that it
We
has
realised-
lackluster problems that should be
Yeah.
addressed.
that, like, as far as like, I don't know, as far as the game's concerned, like, it does feel like, they pay attention to the exploration part a lot. With all of the cave shapes they change, right? They add new cave shapes. Every new game mode has new cave
When
generations.
did they add the two new
like-
biomes? It was a while ago, but they still add new
that
biomes,
biomes, that kind of stuff.
new
And then that
generation, new
also-
events and stuff like random encounters, which is all sort of exploration, which
Yeah, and
adds tons.
then-
And the new enemies adds fun to swarm types.
And
New
this,
classes
the new
adds fun
update
to swarm types, like new not classes, new weapons and stuff, new overclocks, rebalancing. That's all swarm type stuff.
Yeah.
And that affects you on your fighting.
And I think there is an argument that, like, honestly, the exploration and the swarm combined comes together in extraction, right? Because you're going through those caves you've explored, fighting the enemies you fought before, but now you've kind of got to run through it as well. And I think in concept, it's better than it actually is. Like, I don't know, it just results in you going through caves you've already been through and not killing enemies, because killing enemies would take too much time and effort most of the time, right? You just run through them.
The swarms in extractions are mostly the same, aren't they? Like when we do normal swarms, you get like obviously like different types of them, where there's like more oppressors, more praetorians, more swarmers, more exploders, more slashers, more like whatever. It varies all the time. Whereas it seems like in extractions, it's just the same sort of stuff, like the same amount.
I think it's just the normal pool of whatever that mission is.
Yeah.
Like whatever you've been getting normally, it's that, just kind of over and over again. And I don't know. It's just like when you break it down, I don't think it's that interesting. Obviously, it plays better. Like it does. With the timer on, the music going off, the gameplay tends to not matter. Like it doesn't feel that that off. But all I'm saying is me and Tom trying to find a reason as to why people are so willing to skip that part, and that's not even just the current glitch, but it's also the driller one, right? Like why people are generally frothing at the mouth to just skip it, like, cause especially I think an example of this is bunkering. Bunkering is essentially skipping the swarm part of the game, right? I would say it basically makes it so easy that you're essentially skipping the hazardous and the fun of a swarm, right? That is very controversial.
But people still don't do it often. Like we don't, unless
because
you really need to.
People
because it's
generally
fun fighting normally.
Yeah, people generally enjoy doing swarms, so they're not going to opt into making it less fun unless they have to, in that it's getting too difficult, they need to bunker down quick, like that kind of thing, right? But with extractions, if you have a driller on your team, most of everyone is expecting them to drill to the
They're
point.
expecting it. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's very often the case.
Yeah. Like whenever I'm not doing it,
but no
I'm
one
kind
wants
of
to skip the swarm.
Like sometimes I don't always drill to there. I assume you probably noticed that, Harry, right? Like sometimes I won't, but sometimes like if there's a slightly vertical cave or anything, I'm like, fuck it, I'm just gonna drill.
So
like,
it's interesting, isn't it? Because that is sort of taking those situations where the original intention was probably just that you come across a very difficult vertical thing to try and get around. The original intention was probably just to drill up to the top of that ledge not to immediately encounter something that you would need the drills for, and that immediately skips over a lot of steps and becomes drilling straight to the drop pod, rather than just drilling to get over that single obstacle. So it's almost like, so would you say your way of doing extractions as a driller almost more so comes down to, you'll probably do it normally until you come across something where you need the drills, and then you immediately go straight to the drop pod with the drills. That makes sense to me as well, by the way. It's kind of probably what I would do as a driller as well, to be honest.
Yeah, like if it's just running towards them, I'm not gonna pull out the drills.
No,
and force the drill them.
it's done.
But like as soon as I'm met with like you have to go back on yourself, up and then around, and then you'll go to the room, and I can see the drop pod's only like 20 meters away. I'm like, fuck that noise, right? like I don't know. It's like you can do that. Or honestly, I think like I would say I'm more of a dynamic driller in that regard, because I assume there's some drillers that refuse to. I imagine there are some people like that. But most drillers would just literally do it. Plus, I've seen many times I'm playing with randoms. I'm the only driller on the team. We start extraction. A person immediately goes to the nearest wall and pings it. Literally, like he's like
ambulance. Sorry, ambulance. I meant.
Yeah, like he immediately just goes to the nearest wall, pings it, and he wants / expects me to do it, and everyone else is immediately like, oh yeah, we know, yep, come on, let's do it. Like it's just kind of, it's weird that drilling to the pod is so inherently accepted, yet
my god, the sirens are still going. Sorry, but it's just like it's
what happens when you live near a hospital.
So it is ambulances, not police.
Yeah.
Okay, I guess that's better.
Yeah, it just means someone's dying and not someone's dying. But
someone's stabbed because the police wouldn't respond to it or couldn't respond in time. So now they're just picking up the corpse because it's taken 3 hours to arrive at the scene.
Yeah. Plus, the ambulance obviously would have taken that long as well.
It's actually in American hospitals, there's literally a fee to hold your baby.
Yeah, like having a child in America costs like 20 grand.
I mean, just calling the ambulance costs like 3K, right? Just having an ambulance called.
That's why most people. It's actually become a thing to get an Uber to the hospital.
Yeah, because it would be a lot cheaper.
Yeah, and it's not like fantasy. It's not like, oh, I'm going to get an Uber to the hospital because the ambulance is so much more expensive. No, it's real. A lot of people do that. A lot of people.
Yeah, it's. I mean, it is smart, if anything. And Uber
it is very smart.
But
Uber should lean into it.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but why wouldn't you provide that? Not just like Uber, but just a service that provides cheaper ambulances?
Yeah, because Uber could honestly promote that. It probably not. Uber could promote that and make it become a much more universalized thing, and then even make it a lot more expensive as well, and people still choose it. So that would be a really genuinely good.
All you have to do is provide that service for less than 3K, and then you'll be getting more. And that Point is I genuinely think that people are more willing to cheese extraction because they find it less fun than doing swarms. For the drilling towards there and the bunkering better, right? That like both of them equally invalidate the difficulty and fun / challenge and all those words of that type of phase. Obviously, I don't think there's anything you can really do for exploration other than being scout, but so we ignore that part. But like they both provide the same amount of skipping, and yet one of them is heavily controversial. The other one was widely accepted. Like even like the drilling one is widely accepted, but even this engineer one, like some people didn't like, but ultimately no one really cared. Right? And
well, that's the thing. It didn't become. I guess I don't know if viral is the right word because I thought viral implies outside of its own space, but it didn't really take off, did it? And it's also in that same vein. It's not a huge issue now that's been removed either. Because I was going to bring up the idea of whether or not this had exposed something where, in general, people don't like extraction anywhere near as much as Ghost Ship would hope that they would, but. The reaction to it being removed doesn't imply that really, does it? You know.
Well, that's the thing though. That's the thing is because, and this was I think it was either a post or a comment on a post on Reddit I read, and I think it was a comment on our video, and that's when I found out that you released a video, and then I talked to Tom about it. That was the spark essentially that they don't really care about the new glitch because it's only a slightly quicker and more convenient version of the drills one. like because the drillers drilling towards the pod is so natural that like if you have a driller, extraction is nothing. It's a non-content. You drill towards there. It was easy and it's done. That was already a thing in the game and has been for so long that people, or at least this guy, he justifies it and he says like, it doesn't really matter that there's an even shorter and even quicker one. Extraction already didn't feel like a part of the game, right? Like it already was and it was not important that you could skip it because you could already essentially do it just slightly slower. Like it's like finding, I don't know, a glitch that cuts out a minute and then a glitch that cuts out like 50 seconds and then patching the 50 seconds one, right? It's like there's still a shortcut there. It's just slightly slower. Like it's interesting though because ultimately people justified the driller one with saying like this guy in the comments. He was like as much as I think that's the case, you shouldn't remove the driller one. It's one of his main uses, right? Drilling to the pod is one of driller's best abilities.
The solution, because there's tons of different solutions, is allowing, because obviously driller has an option to change the way it is done already, and so maybe implementing that for other classes potentially and giving them a way to change it.
I would argue that the current thing was engineer's way of doing that. Engineer digs into the ground.
Not maybe that specifically, but maybe a more refined version of that.
Well, I don't.
Like each class could potentially
Scout can already
maybe
grapple and hook his way back there quicker, just generally, right? Like
it could be like dependent on who presses the button, even what character presses the button. That could change.
So what if you're a scout and you press the button, the pod will spawn like further away because you're quicker? Like
what? Maybe not, but make it obviously team player friendly. That then you'd be like, oh right, so which extraction would we like based on what we're doing at the moment?
If you're a gunner, it spawns it comes down directly on top of you, but gets stuck in the ceiling, so you have to build an escalator of zip lines to get up to it.
Like I don't know, some of them, it would add another thing of like picking classes, like. And also, then when you're playing with a team, which of that characters would you like? I'm just like ways of changing the way it works. Maybe in game, like in the mission, you could affect it, or maybe even just randomized extractions, so they're all slightly different and have like a couple of them rotate.
I think expanding extractions themselves. Sorry, I don't think it should be class. I don't think it should have anything to do with class, but I do think there is absolutely reason to expand how extractions work.
Maybe more mission type, biome.
And if there's no two caves behind you, then there's two ones in front of you, right? That's always what it is.
Yeah.
Like, and if you're
like different enemies maybe, or different types of swarms, different spawns of the pod, different ways that Molly gets there, different things you have to do during it, just making it more engaging to do.
I mean, I mentioned it like
every single time, just run from A to B.
Like the Molly's like markers. Like our idea, you would like if you interact with those markers, you get like a little speed boost or something. Maybe like just like touching them. So then like
running past
you are more
running through them, I guess.
You're more incentivized to follow Molly than drill to there.
The thing is, you would catch up with Molly so quickly.
You would, which maybe Molly needs to speed it up a little bit. That might help as well.
There could be a way. I think
needs doing is that you can Molly's doesn't go vertically up. That needs to be fixed. Molly taking paths that you can't follow.
Yeah,
it particularly isn't good for greenbeards.
The thing is that yeah and no.
For new players, it's going to be very confusing.
It is, but ultimately tough.
It teaches an interesting lesson, doesn't it?
They will because the way the system works, and I'm not sure if it will still be the case depending on how they patch the spark, but the way it works, you will always have access naturally to it, because with the benefit of it always spawning behind you, you will have cleared out the dirt, you will have built a path, you will have already been there, so you know that you can get to that pod, right? As long as it's landed in that area. It's just that Molly has taken a quicker way that has, you know, changed it slightly. So now you're going to have to try and find the way without the markers, which is easier said than done sometimes, especially with spawns of enemies constantly being spawned on you, and timer ticking down. Right? It's like, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit, and you have to kind of go in reverse of the room, and I don't know. It's not the end of the world when Molly goes up through a drop pod hole, but it is the end of the world if she goes through a solid wall.
It's also that
that,
I think this entire thing is. I think it's not only is the issue more nuanced, but I think extraction itself is a far more nuanced mechanic than pretty much everyone who's talking about this realizes. I've just been thinking about it the entire time that you've been talking, just breaking down extractions specifically across the different mission types, and you realize that all of these issues, specifically this bug, and also specifically the driller way of cheesing extraction, that's pretty much limited to Mine Expedition, honestly, like in a lot of ways. It comes up a lot in, I would say, smaller egg hunts where it usually spawns the drop pod back at the spawn room, so driller just goes straight there. And elimination as well, I would say. But I think there's actually valuable differences in the way extraction works in all the different mission types.
It's just a straight line, and then the there's the salvage op as well, isn't there? Which is obviously different.
Well, there's differences in pretty much all of them, even if they're not huge. Like Mine Expedition is the one that is thought of most when people think of extraction, because that's the one that people cheese most often. That's also the one that rewards you having traversed the cave properly beforehand. If you do things properly, you probably have a good way out as well, which is, I think, is very good. That's just a good design. It actually rewards you using your tools properly.
No, I wouldn't say that.
And then also the
there's
thing
so
of
much properly you can do. Like, unless you are actually legitimately setting up your caves so you can come back through them for extraction, there's not much you can do. Right?
You could do that though,
with some of those caves.
As in, you probably should do that in a lot of cases, and I guess people just don't. I guess people just.
Yeah.
And then Egg Hunt is.
Why would they when they can just drill?
I would say only on the big ones, but it's still a thing on Egg Hunt. It's like the difference there is, instead of traversing these tunnels, it's usually just getting from one side of a big room to the other, which is pretty
can we
different.
all agree that we do see a problem though in that they're not as interesting and fun replaying wise. That they should be made in some way more engaging.
Yeah, yes, yes. But then, I guess there's even, like I said, there are differences between all of them. I'd say elimination probably has the most generic one, to be honest. But then, point extraction, it's like you survive and then you have to go and find the drop pod as well, which you could argue is kind of tedious, but that's what makes it different. Salvage op is just survive around the drop pod. Refining, you probably already have a pipeline to roughly where it is, which is sort of like a way of already cheesing itself, which is kind of weird. And then Escort Duty is just kind of weird extraction in general, mainly bolstered by the addition of Director's Head.
Pod on the core. Honestly, Escort Duty did not need extraction tapped
But it's got tunnels that are like bred for it. It's got tunnels.
Yeah, exactly. They make it so fucking easy. There's no real point.
Yeah, that's why. But that's why the addition. I mean, obviously, it's not rewarded. It's not. You're not actually rewarded for it. But the idea of taking Director's Head back is the only way. Is the way of making it more interesting for yourself. You're almost juggling it. Sometimes that is a thing. Although it's very easy for me to just leave her behind, to be honest. But it's still something.
Yeah. Well, once again, though, I think you just hooked onto something there. I'm not sure. Probably intentionally, but like. Extraction is always its most interesting when you've forgotten something you needed to deposit or Director's Head, right? It's always when
people take Director's Head all the time when they don't need to. Obviously, because it's a meme, but also because it just makes it more fun.
Yeah, it makes it a little bit more interesting, especially considering it's a lot easier in that mission, right? But like whenever we forget like an Eno Pearl or Jadis, that they're the funnier, more interesting extractions, right? Where we're like throwing around like an inner pearl, like we can
which
do it, we can get it there.
But that brings reward into it. That's probably another reason why people are less interested in it, because there's no reward for doing the extraction other than
Because-
obviously leave. But there's no like
Yeah.
little bits that you could gather on the way. Like it's more fun than trying to get that extra Enor pearl, or like that little bit of extra minerals or gold or something, or like the phase unite you find that you didn't see earlier.
Plus, it's a weird feeling, extraction, considering you are done. You just completed your objective. Now survive. like
Well,
it was like,
I think that it's a very, very deliberate and
I know, definitely.
tonal implementation. It's
Yeah.
partly to do with tone as well. It's like, yeah, you've done that. It's literally all about pretty much the whole theme of the game. Really, it comes back to this. It's like, yeah, you're done, but people doesn't exactly care about you. So you know, you might have done the mission, but you still have the personal objective of getting out alive. You know, that's the difference. And I do think that I like that basically.
Yeah,
I like that aspect of
that's
it.
the annoying thing though, is that isn't the case.
It's a personal objective rather than anything else.
But it isn't, because if no one gets in the pod, you lose. You lose the mission, right? Even if Molly deposits in the drop pod, if everyone dies, you lose the mission.
Or like a sort of bonus round type thing then.
Yeah, but it's not a bonus
So-
round. It's if you don't do it, you failed the entire mission. The mission you just
But-
completed, you've now failed.
I want to point out.
In
So
bonus time.
obviously, you
But it's
still
not bonus,
get
it's
a certain
mandatory.
amount of obviously you still get a certain amount of rewards for that. I suppose there could be a very, very good argument that at the very least, complete the objectives. That should make it count towards assignments, maybe. But nothing
I'll
else.
be.
Because
I wouldn't-
you still get credits and XP even if you fail. Like why would you not progress your assignment just because you didn't get out of there alive? I mean, I guess you probably shouldn't because you're not
Well, no,
alive. But
the assignment would be a very convoluted way of going about it. I think maybe you do not get the multiplier if everyone dies, but like the extraction was started, Molly has returned to the drop pod. Because like even if everyone dies, Molly is still heading towards the drop pod. That drop pod is still going to leave when Molly gets into it. As soon as you press that button, as far as mission
Objective has
control
been
is
completed,
concerned,
so as far as they're concerned,
It's
you
done.
have done.
yeah, Molly is on the way back with everything they wanted, and Molly, no matter if you're alive, no interaction the dwarves can do can stop or is required for Molly
Pod
to
will
get
leave.
into the pod and for the pod to leave. Essentially, as soon as you press that button, the mission is complete. It should actually be on you as a bonus, but like a big bonus to actually come out there alive. Like it should be you complete the mission, you get the bare minimum, but the hazard multiplier and any other multiplier you don't get unless at least someone survives. I think that could be a change.
it's
to
possible.
where-
It's like inherent. It is inherently
That would then
skating
allow
on
them,
very
though,
thin
to make it
ice.
harder, because if they
Because-
made it harder now, it wouldn't really. A lot of people would have
yeah.
a problem with that, because if you
And-
failed,
and
No,
I-
no, no,
I
no, 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 no,
think-
no, 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 no! Don't make
Have
it.
you-
No, no, no,
have
no.
you thought
That's really bad. That's a really bad idea because you're already skating on thin ice by making it not essential. Then making it even harder. They in the first place, they would not want to incentivize people to not do extractions. Like there would be a very big. There'd be more suicides. There'd be more.
No, that's what I'm thinking. That's the shit I want. Like I find that incredibly cool as an idea, and not cool as an idea, but fucking wild as a mechanic. That like genuinely, if you can't be asked to do the extraction, just fucking kill yourself, and then like the mission will be complete. If you don't care about the bonuses, then oh well. But also, I would argue it's the second hand. That would actually benefit Greenbeards greatly. Right? Because I would say early on, extractions are deadly. They're deadly. You do not have the game skill to mantle your way back through the caves and get through and like not die to the horde, the constant.
I
horde
would
of
say,
enemies.
especially on not even on a mission like, I would say especially on point extraction, because that's the one where there's no guidance to the drop pod directly, and it's always like you always have to go to it. You know, you don't have the mule leading you to it, but you also have it's also just as hard to get to as it could be in a mining expedition. Unlike a refinery where, like I said, there's usually a pipeline that can take you straight to it. Or salvage op where it's right there. Point extraction is probably one of the worst ones for new players. Extraction, which is funny.
More sense for
Given
like a fee.
extraction in the
You'd
name.
get the normal reward,
The
but you have to
issue
pay a
is-
fee to be picked up while
Yeah.
you're down. It's like, oh, well, you didn't make it, so you've had to pay for the ambulance. It's been taken out of your
Maybe
wages.
that could do it as well. But I don't know. I just think
Well, that's just a cut off your rewards rather than actually going straight from your credits. But
yeah, I don't know. I
ambulance
think it would add like an extra layer. Plus, with that mechanic, like I would say you don't have to make it
Fucking
harder
hell.
for everyone, but you could easily, and I think a lot of people would be down for Hazard 5 extractions to get harder. That you could be more cruel with Hazard 5 extractions because ultimately you will not fail the
I mean,
mission.
I
You will
like
just
the
lose your bonus.
just as an idea for a new warning, which I see. I would love them to do some more basic warnings.
Have
Like,
some, mineral loot bugs spawn at the end
Well, no, like
in the extraction phase.
Jesus Christ, Mitchell. Well, it's like this is pretty old idea for a warning, which is like communications disruption, right? Where I don't think it would literally turn everything off, but it would like just interrupt certain aspects, and like I guess your map would be like fuzzy and not very reliable, and even like swarm callouts would be faulty in some way, things like that. And I guess even like extraction could be fucked up as well, where like maybe you couldn't even see where the drop pod lands. I don't know, but
I think that's
For a
an
specific
unrelated
warning.
idea, but I do agree with you that the game does need a couple more wrenches like that. I would say like when we go into a point extraction, Harry, you could say the exact time we're gonna get the swarm, right? Like you just know how the game works, and it's just so formulaic that you can just tell. Like, or even in like a mining expedition, like you know it's been long enough. Like you know how that works, and that's just how it is. And you could say an example with egg hunt, right? You could have some weird hidden anomaly that you know how normally in egg hunts, 4 eggs is 1 swarm, right? That's how that works. Maybe a hidden anomaly means you get 2 swarms during those eggs. To like,
be a range.
that would, yeah, that
Be
would
a range.
really
On an egg mission, you get
just like an extra 1
like
swarm.
1
somewhere.
to 3.
Yeah.
1 to 3 on a 4 egg.
I think
And so you
maybe
could get the
3
standard
would be a
2.
bit much, but like whatever these like, and this is something important. These hidden anomalies, whatever they would be, that just changes something that you would get used to, right? Like changes like the swarms. Like when you hear the swarm guy telling you stuff, you're like, okay, it's swarm time. Maybe it like baits you in some way, shape, or form. That kind of stuff. It basically exploits you understanding the game to trick you and change things up. Those things will get more and more like beneficial and rewarding in Haz 5. So I think they should probably not be a thing at lower hazards, and they become quite common in Haz 5. Like you can barely trust like anything.
I
in
just
Haz
changed
5.
the banner of the podcast to say extraction bad. Question mark.
But
Yeah, the game does become a bit formulaic, and extractions is obviously the example of that. A very big example of that.
yeah, it's literally it is you run through 2 caves backwards, and every let's say 20 seconds they will spawn a group of around 10 to 15 enemies on you, right? It just does that again and again and again and again and again and again
And again.
and that's pretty much it.
I
With
think
some fancier extractions.
the way I would like this to be done most is really just doubling down on what the differences are between all different extractions. Like people, you wouldn't think that industrial sabotage as one because that's absolutely fair. But I think I've noticed it still spawns enemies, but it's a significantly less deadly extraction, and I would argue you should double down and actually make it spawn nothing because, in my opinion, industrial sabotage. What I like about the way that mission ends is how it's almost like it's over kind of thing. You finish that fight and then it's just like you're done. It should almost drop the drop pod straight on top of you, really. So having it just sort of be a somber walk back to the drop pod after having achieved that would be nice for industrial sabotage.
It's weird that they decided that was the angle they would approach for industrial sabotage, when I would argue that feeling of oh, let me be gone, it's done and over with, applies to a fair amount of some of the other ones as well. Escort
Definitely
duty
applies to like
easily, right?
escort
The honor and
duty.
fight
Well,
is
yes,
is
it does. It does. Although I do want to
uh,
point out how quick the shortest escort duties can actually be. I think it's quite undervalued. You can get those done in like 17 minutes. But either way, and it's definitely like long mine expeditions
it's just
too
more
are
of a
up there.
feeling than it is technical time, that you just spent that time not exploring,
Well, that's why
only
shorter
fighting
escort
for.
duty should also have a shorter armor and fight, maybe as well.
That could work too. But I don't know. It needs a whole rework, to be honest with you. Like, genuinely, head to toe, sort it out. But that's for another time. But I don't know. I think that's just an interesting angle that I hope Ghost Ship is looking at that exploit. In that, because if it's only the speed running people doing it, or like only Greenbeards because they can't do the they can't do the extraction, so it's just a nice shortcut to like save them losing, right? Those things I think you can understand and be fair, but like if your average player just can't, like, just without thought uses that exploit, that's worrying, right?
Mm.
Like generally, if your average player
Pardon me.
who enjoys your game, likes your game, will exploit it in an instant without even thinking, there's something concerning there.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I'm not sure how big of a deal it is, because ultimately, as you know, mentioned,
Don't like the
not
content that's there, so they're adapting it to a way they want
Yeah.
it. And so if you look at the way that the community have made it through that sort of driller thing, that's how they want it, because that's how it is done. Like, they are deciding every time that's the way they want to be doing their extractions.
yeah, they don't want to be doing their extractions. That's what that says, right? And that's what this glitch says. It says that all these people don't want to do extractions. The speedrunners, it makes sense, right? They want to cut away as much fat as humanly possible. The new people, it makes sense because it's kind of difficult, so they wouldn't want to do it because they'll lose, right? But for your average player, opting out of part of the experience that they claim to love is odd. It's a red flag.
I guess maybe something I should bring up is I guess the fact that, well, we've been making lots of suggestions, and I think the reason why that's a good thing, or at least something that should be done, is because the action taken here by Ghost Ship is a very clear indication that they care about extraction, they value it, and they want people to experience it. The fact that they're cutting short or cutting off, completely eliminating an exploit that allows people to skip it tells us something. Think about it though, the driller thing, you can't stop that, right? You just can't. But this, they could, so they did. The driller thing's always going to be around because it's literally impossible to get rid of. But
you would have to make unbreakable terrain, which is against the whole thing.
Yeah, barring that, because you have to bar it, it's clear that they want people to experience extraction. It's a part of the game that they value, part of the game they made that they want people to experience.
It's probably like the first thing they did as soon as they got back from a holiday, right? Because that exploit came out while they're on holiday, but it's been like, it was what, 9 days since they got back and they patched it. It's like essentially the only thing they patched as well, other than the holiday stuff. They clearly were like frothing in the mouth, like, we need to get this pit like fixed like now.
Yeah,
like, this is not
but
funny.
like even the but even well, the thing is, even the wording used in the obviously it's like probably not exactly how they feel about it. They probably were a bit more like they're probably a bit more serious than the post suggests.
Right?
Like, what did Jacob say?
Or wasn't it Jacob the one, the community guy that Access Chronos got to fly with?
Yeah.
Right? He thought that it sucked. That it's a Leaf Lover move. Like he did not see it as being a cool thing to do. Like a kind of an attack on the game, essentially. Like, obviously not those words are so grandeur, but like it seemed anti-dwarf to do that, and he claimed that to be the case. And
I actually disagree heavily. I disagree heavily because of the way they talked about it in the post. Like, they're sort of doing a little bit of like a playful in-universe way, where it's like mission control has been made aware of a short circuit in the drop pod targeting computer, and it seems some dwarves are using this glitch to clock out a little early. Now, obviously, implementing it would be difficult deliberately, but I love the idea of players. It's almost like a way of role playing. The dwarves would want to do that. They would want to find a workaround to the way that works.
You
Get out of there.
If
that
we
way.
want to think about like an idea, I literally just had an epiphany in the head. Is the idea of like Tom's like changing where it spawns depending on player or some bollocks like that. I'm not sure about that idea, but maybe a mini game that you can play like just before they press the button. Like the button appears. But like somewhere else on Molly, you could do like a little thing. Maybe what was the wording they used?
Do you mean the targeting computer? Is that what you meant?
Probably not then. But like some like a glitch in the mainframe or whatever. To like you do that and you can basically cut it down like by half. So instead of spawning 2 rooms back, it spawns 1 room back. Maybe something like that.
Yeah, maybe it's actually in the form of hacking
like that,
as well.
And then you can.
Yeah. And maybe the hacking thing.
The hack could be character dependent, which type it is on the difficulty.
And maybe. Well, I'm not sure about that, but maybe it isn't always there, and sometimes there's 2 of them, something like that, right? That like, maybe it like Molly doesn't always like have a wire exposed or something, and sometimes she has 2 wires exposed. Which if she's 2 players or you do it twice, you can cut it down to literally almost being on top of you. But it's then like a random thing to where randomly, if you opt in, you can make the extraction more reasonable. Which I think is a bit like jet boots in that regard. The way I'd see it is that the game will then become easier if you want it to with a mini game sometimes, right? Like that kind of thing is literally something they added with jet boots.
Does normally and everything and does well. I think that's then just an expansion on what it already does.
Yeah, so I think that might be an idea that
That's a good idea.
Well, see, that would be an awesome way of them. What the fuck is that?
That was Mitchell making bird sounds.
What a fucking idiot. That would be an awesome way of them actually deliberately doing this. Similar to something like Small Meteor or the promotion Core Bug. The reason why I bring these things up though is because those are the kind of things that sparked the original idea for the topic, where it's just like things that they reworked into something, which was going to be a big part of it. People don't realise that frameworks being separate from paint jobs was literally born out of a glitch. But the reason why those 2 are so important is because they're much more recent. But the reason why those things happened is because there was the outcry that justified them doing it. I don't think it's the same in this situation.
One outcry, which I think there's a lot of layers. One outcry, first of all, being a meme, essentially. Like, not Small Meteor, no, bring it back, no.
Well, I guess maybe outcry isn't exactly right word. That implies a bit more negativity. I guess the general interest required.
The overclock one.
Yeah, that was outcry. But on average, I just mean the interest required to make it a worthwhile endeavor, basically.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's there this time.
And to second that, like,
towards something that the community isn't going to give a shit about.
Yeah, which I think the reason why the community doesn't give a shit about it is the driller thing. It's already essentially been in the game, right? People already
one character.
Yeah, I know it's not great.
But it's also 1 out of 4. It's like literally the entire class can just do that. You just have to have it.
And I think a lot of people I think would say the only thing a driller would provide is that. I think people could claim that argument. Well, because otherwise...
See what they're saying next time I do it, and I have to do it entirely using in containment field.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, it's... I don't know, yeah. I think it's because of that there's not as much backlash for them patching it, unlike the last Overclock one, which obviously didn't go down too well for them. As in, people made videos saying Deep Rock was anti-player, naming no names. But... yeah, so whatever you were saying before, Harry.
But I didn't really have anything else to say.
Go on, Harry. Continue your sentiment while I.
Well, I do wonder if there's any chance that it could take off. The thing is, I guess it's probably either just going to get cut off here and people are just going to stop talking about it immediately, or it will maybe spiral. I don't know. And I'd love to see it spiral, by the way, genuinely. Not because I'm like a huge fan of it actually changing particularly. I don't think that's hugely important, to be honest. But I like it when this kind of thing happens for some reason. I think it's interesting. That's basically it. I kind of want there to be an outcry because I think it's interesting.
Out of those 2 things, the game tends to get better right? Like, as much as I think you would, debate how good Small Meteor actually is now, we did gain something from both of those things. One of them
They
being
have,
more
for
important.
me, they've added a small level of tedium, at least in both examples, where Small
Yeah.
Meteor is just a bit of an annoyance for me now, and even then, I don't. This is very personal. Like, this doesn't apply to anyone else. I know that, really, but I have so many cores. I just don't. It just annoys me that I have to use a joystick cursor to click on 3 individual claim buttons.
Yeah,
So
so-
basically, very very small. But I do think, just on a base level, a claim all is a very reasonable addition. A claim all button.
Right.
Like, just, or literally just the continue button, claiming them all for you. I mean, come on.
Probably do that for holiday events while you're there as well.
Yeah.
But I think, other than Harry's issues with them, the game, they added a way to get the heart without going into the rock box. Or actually, this was it. They gained a way to gain heart while you were in a Rockbox mission, right? That was the thing they stated as to why they added them, right? Like, obviously they added the kind of because of the meme, but also because they realized it kind of should be rewarded with the new game, like with the new currency when you're engaging with the new gameplay, right? And so I think they added it for that kind of thing. But also, and then with the overclock grind, they actually added a way for you to be able to, if you play more, you earn more overclocks. They needed to add that system as well because people were playing more and getting nothing for it, and it felt terrible to like the players that were playing the most, right? So both things, while there was player demand, be it sarcastic like meme demand and actual genuine hurt feelings, did the game better in the long run. If a bit inconvenient for Harry, and the Small Meteor have worn a bit thin with how common they are, but they should tone down during the seasons that aren't Rockbox. But the game is better thanks to that stuff. I wouldn't say because people raged and shouted at them and all that stuff, because they've done that about other things and Ghost Ship's never done anything. It's just that when Ghost Ship sees an opportunity to add something that the players want in a way that they actually see fitting, good stuff tends to occur. And with this, I kind of don't think it's going to be like that. Mainly because when they patched the overclock grind, they did not make a comment about it, right? They didn't play around jokingly like, oh, there are some dwarfs tinkering with the assignment machine and getting some free overclocks.
Yeah, if you would care to group these 3 things together for whatever reason, you can clearly see that being the outlier. Obviously, that was very serious. That was a very serious thing on both sides. That was serious for them. They were not happy about that. I don't think at all, or at least the people who weren't happy about it. It wasn't unanimous at Ghost Ship, but when it came to people who were against it, I think they really had no favor for it. They were like, this sucks. And obviously, it was the most serious in terms of the outcry as well from the community. And I think this one is kind of like, it's not in between the two, definitely. It's kind of just not much at all, basically, is what I'm saying. It's not in between because it's nowhere near as extreme. It's not like, oh, it's like, just as serious and just as silly as both of them. It's just not much of either. It's not particularly cared about, basically. Which is kind of what it comes down to. But at the same time, we did mention how it's sort of almost becoming a unanimous thing, that it was becoming something that was being done very, very frequently. So I just have to wonder, even if there isn't any outcry, is there actually an issue here, like underlying it, that people have in general with extraction? Maybe there is.
I think it's a light one at best. If there is anything, it's like the overclock hate or the overclock disagreement with the Ghost Ship, we'll say, has stemmed for like years, but no one has a direct issue with extraction. Be that because it's not that bad, because as mentioned, I think it really isn't that bad. It just wears a bit thin over time, unless you throw a bit of a wrench in there yourself by forgetting to deposit an inner pearl, and then it starts spicing up, or trying to kill each other near the end of the pod where you wait for Molly, that kind of stuff. Like, whether it's because of that kind of stuff, or the fact that you can just drill, like no one really cares about extraction to the point where I would say, Ghost Ship cares more about extraction than players do. Like the players did not see this glitch being that big of a thing.
It wasn't like
no one
relief,
really talked
was
about
it? It
no
wasn't
one's really
relief.
talking about it, like not being here anymore. No one really cares. Yet Ghost Ship clearly did a lot, right?
The promotion glitch was almost like relief from the grind, right? Whereas this isn't relieving anyone of anything. People liked doing it, and also like using the word relief.
Just like
a relief lovers. The trick.
People, right?
It's a bit of shenanigans, one might say.
It's like, hey, did you know you can do this? Which apparently the guy in the comment apparently he showed that to a bunch of greenbeards. I feel sorry for them that are definitely not going to know it's been patched, try it themselves, and then probably die in a hole. Well, the thing is, that's what's going to occur, right? They're going to press the button, be inside of a hole under the ground with a bunch of platforms being on top of them. The drop pod is going to spawn nowhere near them. Meanwhile, 1 to 2 swarms of enemies is going to spawn on top of them, right? Like they're boned. Like
gonna be an oppressor. Or a bolt detonator. Yeah, he's gonna show up and fuck them up. Yeah. I mean, something I did want to mention. Oh, I just kicked over my drum. I don't know if this can be heard.
Yep. Definitely can be
heard. From Africa.
Wow.
I know. Well, there was something that I didn't get to when I was talking about how I think extractions are better than people realise. I think, like, the combat part of it is different. Obviously, it is pretty much just run and gun, yes, but in that sense, in my opinion, it exposes some of the most high priority targets. I think the Stingtail is going to become the most prioritized enemy in extractions. Because that's an enemy that you can run away from, and it can still, bring you back. Specifically, bring you back. You have to kill it or disable it.
Of the pod, right?
Yeah,
you can be home safe.
It's an anti-extraction enemy. You can get there, as Driller, but Stingtail might still be there to fuck your day up. So I think those aspects of it kind of interesting, especially a bulk destiny showing up at the drop pod too. That's funny as fuck, genuinely. I think that's hilarious.
Once again, those are wrenches being thrown in, fun wrenches, but normally there isn't really one, really much, especially when you drill towards there. There's none.
No silence. Can't do that. Well, it's very possible that we're done with the extraction stuff, which brings me to the point that that's kind of enough. We've got a lot out of it, and it's very interesting that that's become the topic for this episode, because we can kind of leave it there, actually, and I think that's kind of interesting. I did not expect to get an entire episode out of this one issue. It's not a long episode yet, but I'm not going to drag it out either. There is one thing I did want to cover the patch in as much detail as possible, at least anything that was significant, which is not much, by the way. I didn't realise though that there was a bug that was doubling mission resources and XP.
Sometimes,
yeah,
in some cases,
and that supposedly, seemingly, had something to do with that double performance point icon. That was a related issue, it seems, which is very, very bizarre. Although, actually, no, hold on. Remove the extra pool float icon in the mission end screen. That's a separate. Also, they reduced the size of the pool float on the map, which is a big shame. Yeah, big shame. That's another bug that was fun. Yeah. The other very strange thing is added eyebrows inside the industrial visor. The industrial visor being the blue visor thing, right? Which struck me as odd for multiple reasons. One of them was
not an old one.
No, that's this one, the blue one.
Oh, so they've not done the older one then?
The cloudy blue visor. What do you mean? I mean, the
It's
Abyss.
Yeah, the Abyssal
That
one. Right?
no. Hold on. Fuck you. A point I made in the video when I went through the patches was how that had already been done,
Oh.
and yet for some reason with this one in season 4, it hadn't already been done. You know,
Yeah.
why did that not carry over to them? You know, doing that to what is essentially the same type of helmet. Now, obviously, it's much harder to see through this visor, I admit, but still, it is a bit odd. Like, do these things really not carry over, right? As in, I don't know where I'm going with this, but in my opinion, it should have carried over. The fact that they had to do this is one thing, and it's a very similar thing this time. It should have been like, oh, we should probably make sure the eyebrows are in there this time.
I feel like it could be one of those things where I feel like, not knowing obviously how it works at all, the art department might be a lot more person to person than a department, right? Like this might not be like a group of people that seem to be just selectively making uniform hats for no good reason. This just might be one person that likes uniform helmets and makes those, and this could be the one person that thinks that these helmets should have eyebrows or shouldn't have
Careful,
eyebrows.
we want to be careful about you know.
I know. I'm just saying,
making assumptions that could be disproven with a Google search.
Yeah,
Which I actually am doing right now.
I mean, there are obviously multiple people. That's obviously the case. But I don't know. I'm just thinking like this kind of stuff feels like lack of communication. That's what it feels like, which doesn't make much sense given the size of their team. But like, it was known that they had to add it. They had to add eyebrows. They then would have been like, okay, we had to add eyebrows to that. We should add eyebrows to them from now on. And it just seems like whoever had that helmet next didn't do that. They were like, no eyebrows, which either was them not hearing about the give them eyebrows shout, or them actively deciding against giving it eyebrows. And I feel like that might be more the thing, or maybe not a person, but just like why we keep getting uniform helmets, even though no one likes uniform helmets. I think it might be because
Tyler, uniform means it matches the armor.
Oh right, then the opposite of that.
Yeah, I don't know what the opposite would be. I don't think there's a word.
Non-uniform. Non-uniform helmets. Then, like the person that did the plague mask this time round, maybe have been a different person who did it the first time round. Right? That's kind of where my mind's going. In that the first time round, the person that did it understood that hats should be uniform, so it is. But this second time round, the person they got to give it the hat were like, no, I want it to be red and black. So
I want it to be these colours. But that shouldn't even be a thing. That shouldn't be a thing, because in my opinion, there shouldn't be anything that isn't uniform. So it should be.
That's my opinion, but there doesn't seem to be ghost ships. So I guess it would then be up to that person who's designed it to be like, this is going to be non-uniform, and that might be the person
you just severely reduced the number of people who are going to use that cosmetic when it would have been a lot, by the way, with that hat.
The plague mask with the hat would have replaced like anyone that was using the old plague mask first of all, immediately, and then like probably more so. But now that hat is so limited in what it can be used for if it actually wants to look good, which is I feel something that they forget. That it really does feel like they forget things are supposed to look good in the game. You're adding cosmetics to look good, not just to be worn, right? Which is what these uniform things really kind of.
Or not just to be worn. It feels. It makes this one feel very token, you know. But it's just like we have our plague mask with a hat now, but it's not in there to be a great cosmetic for some reason. Yeah. It's just in there to be the plague mask with a hat. It's just
tick that box. And I don't know, it's
By the way, I want to point out that doesn't apply to many of the cosmetics, to be honest.
That's why I think like it seems like someone sometimes, right? Because that's the thing. Either they get it sometimes, right? They get it that they need to have eyebrows in those ones that should have eyebrows. They get it that some things should be uniform, right? Or like, I do mean uniform. Like some things, like when they uniformized balaclava, wasn't it? Like they changed that into one.
Yeah, they added the uniform variant, so I hope we can get that.
Yeah, and the fact that the plague mask even originally was uniform, they do get it sometimes. Or it's either they get it sometimes, or not everyone gets it. That's how I'm kind of playing it.
I would be wary to act as if that is the case, though. I'm not.
But I think right now, I mean, yeah, I shouldn't act off that. But right now, for me, it makes more sense that one person disagrees or just doesn't care with about like making uniform hats, and is making the non-uniform ones and the ones where everyone's bald, and that's just someone seemingly not getting what makes helmets and hats good, rather than a team that generally can and does make really good helmets just randomly fucking up with lessons they already learned, right? Like that kind of thing. Like they had the industrial face mask, right? I think that's really specific. When I just meant the first face mask where they had to move down to the face, right? That was color color changeable, right? Or like I guess uniform. Meanwhile, then the next season they were like, let's get rid of that. Let's make it just a weird green that doesn't match with any armor. Technically, like it's not actually the same as any armor. Obviously, you made it work, which fair
the
enough.
scorpion mask.
Yeah, the scorpion mask.
Yeah,
it was them,
which is actually really fucking cool as well, by the way. But it's like,
yeah, that you managed to get it working, but that they didn't know you were going to do that. They definitely, that was not the goal. And I don't know what the goal was. Like, I genuinely, it feels weird that that when they started off, and this is especially with the hat thing, they got that it should be uniform. That was something they knew. They knew it should be uniform. A uniform is better. And then all of a sudden they forgot that.
There's that stupid change they made to the bowler hat, where it's like it has more colour to it now, which is already a mistake, right? Whereas like it was fine when it was grey, because they made it has like the purple band around it now.
Yeah,
it's like shinier. That's it. It should have just, first of all, just a bad change. There was no reason to change that. I'd also love a uniform version of it as well, obviously, but like it's fine, it's great because that worked with pretty much everything. But oh shit. Well, I'm hoping because
it's just the way I see it, that it makes more sense to me that that it's not just them randomly remembering and forgetting the lessons they've learned, and the just actual good stuff. And it makes more sense that just someone or some people just aren't doing it, and they personally do not like uniform helmets, and so they keep adding the non-uniform ones. That makes more sense to me than them just literally ununiforming your plague helmet.
Fuck you, ununiformed your plague mask.
Yeah, like it just makes more sense to me that whoever had to put the hat on preferred non-uniform
Sunless got his hat
so
on.
they did that. And they don't actually have the right or say or ability to revert that, right? Like the team can't just be like, no, make it uniform, or they don't really care either. It's just kind of the individuals make the hats they want, and then it goes in, and that's kind of how it works. Whenever it goes in, that is a theory, a game theory. Thanks for watching.
No, but I mean, I do have it's been a bit of a topic, I suppose, somewhat, of like basically just things being added based on feedback, which is very strange. Changes based on feedback, or the implementations of things, for example. You could call the industrial face mask being changed to a beard a re-implementation of it, you know. So, and there's been a little bit of feedback in this category in response in the eyebrows department, which is the next step, right?
Yeah.
And I'm only bringing this up because it has been a bit of a thing going on with the eye patch mainly, actually, not the glasses, mainly the Nick Fury eye patch thing was just like this should be an eyebrows thing. As in, I just hope we can replicate what happened with the face mask, because that wasn't huge outcry either. That was just more generalized feedback over time that they looked at and like, okay, that makes sense. Um, this is different though, because the industrial face mask was a fairly new kind of cosmetic. It was like the first of its kind, really.
Yeah.
We got a lot of things that could be changed into eyebrows. We got a lot of.
Yeah, it's a bigger task, and also I think the interesting thought is I think this thing, is not in the hands of the artists, right? The people that made
Not
the
as much.
the thing. This is the coders, and it's the same with we adding eyebrows. Like it probably wasn't the artists that made it so you couldn't have eyebrows. Right?
Well, Tyler, I'm sorry, but based on what you just said, I know we're not supposed to be treating it as an assumption, but based on what you said, there's a very high chance that that person who made that hat also made that thing because it's like, oh, this is the Nick Fury one, so it's got to make you bald.
Yeah, but they and that's fair. That's their design saying they want it to be that way. But technically, like, and I mean that in like technically, when and not this is not the Nick Fury one. This is the eyebrow one. They have to technically remove the eyebrows from showing up. They have to like turn off beard, turn off hair color, turn off all that stuff technically, right? And that is not the artists doing that. And that's the same with the face mask, essentially. It turned on and off things. That's not the artist doing that. And that's the stuff that changes, generally, right? Like that, moving it around and adding eyebrows, that's the technical part of whatever they're doing. Switching some levers and changing some areas and turning stuff on and off, right? It's not the artists redesigning it. And obviously, I think that the Nick Fury one is easily could be that. Like they just have to move it over to the eyebrows because it is pretty available. Same as they got the sunglasses one. Like you could do that, but I don't know. I think the changes we see from that stuff don't come from the artists designing it to be in a different place inherently. Obviously, they did start doing that when the face mask got changed. They started designing stuff with knowing that they would be in the face mask, like the neck brace and that. I think the neck brace stuff we wouldn't have gotten without the face mask being moved, unless they come out at the same time. I'm speaking bullshit, but it's more. It's more.
Actually, I think they did. I think they did. Actually,
then ignore that. But then it's the person who puts the cosmetics that the artists make in the game and then codes them into being real things that go on your face and then that turn off like beards if it's covering up your entire face. It turns off that entire side, right? Like it's that person who needs to be convinced, essentially.
Convicted. Wait, what?
It's that person who's has the power to move the Nick Fury cosmetic over into the eyebrow area, which I think honestly maybe should just be changed to like the eye slot anyway, really, and that like the eyebrows will just stop mattering really, and that like because like with all the goggles you wouldn't have eyebrows on anyway, so
no.
That would be something.
Not that there are actually that many goggles on their own. That's the thing.
Yeah, which I think.
Like, honestly, the only one I can think of actually, aside from the glasses, is the very original mining goggles. You know, where it just leaves you bald.
Yeah.
And that's a very obvious one. You know, that's a really obvious one, and that would be a very basic thing. That would open up a lot if you could combine that with any helmet, you know, or hair.
When I saw the post about that stuff, pretty immediately, like it wasn't the most upvoted comment was them talking about they should just add more than just this. They should add all of like the Google things, and the one below it being like they should add like cut them out and that. So it didn't take long for most general people to think of and know that cut out the goggles from the other cosmetics and use them in eyewear slots. But like this is not an idea that only we're coming up with. Essentially, is my point.
It seems
like
glad.
Generally,
I think we were the first.
Anyone that gives a shit enough about talking about the cosmetics knows that they just need to start segmenting some of the headwear just pretty quick.
I really love the example of the goggled head wrap though. In the way that it's really been done in a way already in how it shouldn't have been done. Where the goggled head wrap exists in two versions, which is the full one, and the top half. And the full one is obviously the bandana, the head wrap, and the goggles. The top one is just the bandana or the turban, I guess. I don't know if you're supposed to call it a turban, and the goggles. Whereas what it actually should be is not two versions of the same headgear, but actually just three completely distinct cosmetics, which is a hat, a set of goggles, and a beard. Yeah. Which I would love. That. I still want that. Like, no matter what, I still want that beard. I want like the cloth bandana as a beard.
Yeah.
Really badly.
Like, they're probably more likely to just come up with a new one that will probably end up making non-uniform than just cutting it out, because I don't know. Like, well, I think maybe I know, because it's easier for the artists to get them to do their job, and like not get them to do their job, but it's easier for them to just continue making new cosmetics than it is for them probably surgically cutting apart the old ones, right? I mean, obviously, once again, they did it this season, halla fucking Luya, right? Cutting out the sleeves of the armors is a real step forward.
Begs the question: where's our tattoos?
Yeah,
genuinely though. I mean, I'm not kidding.
I'm
not kidding.
How tattoos work. Like yeah, I know. I don't know, man. It's something we are slowly but surely improving. It's something, a part of the game that I'm not even sure Ghost Ship recognizes that they're making progress on.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I guess so.
I don't think at any point in time they have gone into the season with the intentions of improving the cosmetic system, other than maybe season 1, because it was improving the way you get cosmetics with the season pass.
Oh nuts! We got another patch just now. We got.
Oh my god! Just now.
All right. Let's I've got an idea. Let's not. Should we talk? I guess we should probably talk about it, and then I was gonna be like, let's end it, and then we can do the patch together, whatever. But we should probably talk about it now, so it's in the podcast, and then I'll do the video on its own. But yeah, it's also apologies for doing that again, but I think the cosmetics thing is one of the things that we care about. We care about the most, and equally as well.
Yeah,
I don't know. I know it's one of the things that you care about the most, certainly.
If they rejigged the cosmetics and added more like loadout slots, so I could make more dwarfs, I would play the game more right now. I don't need actual content. I need more cosmetics.
Obviously, you do get more cosmetics, but it's like that's why we dissect the issues. Anyway, this is gonna be the last thing that we talk about on the episode, which is patch number 6 of season 4. Something about the corruptor causing late joining dwarves to see minerals and terrain that had already been mined.
Okay.
Great. Okay. They fixed a bug that caused minerals and carved terrain to become desync between host and late joining clients if the corruptor was present in the level. Fixed a bug where Stingtail would sometimes fling players way too high. Oh! Fixed a bug that caused the season countdown timer to be visible if the game is offline / lost connection to the back end. But why would there be a timer at all? I don't think that's actually suspicious, but it's weird. Like, where is it getting that time from that people are seeing when it shows up?
I don't know, but I don't think it ever goes down.
Maybe maybe not.
They start.
But yeah, I guess so. It was a bug that the Stingtail was flinging play. I mean, it makes sense, right? The momentum that I gain sometimes when they fling you upwards is wrong. It's just not right at all. So that I suppose it's good, and that's going to help some people who really fucking hate the Stingtail for some reason. Probably for that reason. So,
yeah.
Well done.
Was that it?
That was it. Very minimal.
Wait, was there only like a day after, right? Like a patch note day after.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
I guess that reinforces that even more for me though. They wanted, even though all the patches they wanted done weren't there, they had to fucking patch like the as quickly as they could.
Yeah.
Either that or the 2 times reward one. But one of those two or both, they were really fucking intent on getting rid of.
Absolutely. Okay.
But I think that is us.
That is the end. That is the end of the world, in fact.
As we know it.
It's the end of the world as we know it. It's the end of Extraction as we know it, I guess.
Or it's the end of that Extraction glitch.
This was sponsored by Extraction 2 on Netflix.
And there's a third one coming out.
Not coming out. I think it's been announced, but it's like not coming out, is it?
Right, Extraction
can't
coming out. I
do
was
anything
thinking
at the moment.
Equalizer. I've been getting.
Oh yeah, Equalizer 3. Yeah, I haven't seen any of those films.
This may sound bad, but they're just black guy John Wick, right? Like
That does sound bad.
but no, but like that is all the advertising is really showing, because normally it's just like
Tyler,
like,
the
it would
only
be-
reason it's okay that you said that is because I think it is a very reasonable assessment of the way that Hollywood works. That is how they're marketing it. Frankly,
It is
I think
just
that is
as
fair.
generic as all the other movies, but everyone's black, and that's like the only
Oh my
difference.
god! Okay, the podcast is over. If you enjoyed this, thank you, genuinely so much. Please make sure to like, subscribe, and
But it is a good
click
thing.
that bell for the upcoming interview with trolls. What are you saying?
It's a good thing that that it's not all just white guys again.
Shut
But
up!
it
If you
is
have
weird.
any questions for trolls, please leave them in the community post. And if you have any comments whatsoever, please leave them below because we like your comments and we're definitely
Look,
going
I have a black friend, okay?
What?
I don't
No,
actually.
you don't.
Oh, that's bad. It would be worse if I had a black friend just to say that I had a black friend. So, thank you for watching. Bye
Fuck's
bye.
sake. Good fucking bye.